Most people filing their tax forms know it's a chore, but for some people, it can be an impossible challenge. That's why the city offers free help from a public private partnership, the Boston Tax Help Coalition. To tell us how it can help is the coalition's director and assistant deputy director in the mayor's office of financial empowerment, Mimi Turchinetz. Thank you very much for being with us once again, Mimi.
Thank you, Chris. Nice to see you.
Maybe, almost every year when we do this, it's almost like the same thing happens over and over. But, we're in this pandemic. There have been these big drops in other changes in people's income. So what should people be extra careful about this time around?
Well, I mean, you're right. It is the pandemic has made everything that much harder for low-income households and families who are tax filers. Uh, we know that the pandemic has laid bare uh, disparities, and for us, that in fact is the case as well. So we have a significant digital divide for our taxpayers. We serve uh, low to moderate income folks with free tax preparation across the city. And as your viewers probably do know, that we've done that for many, many years on site at community-based locations with trusted community partners. And so the difference this year is because of the pandemic, of course, we can't do things kind of in the same way. So it's the beginning of a new normal. We had to do this last year at the beginning of the shutdown. The tax sites last year shut down in the middle of March. And at that time, we in fact started to try to figure out what does virtual, safe, free tax preparation look like for communities who are disproportionately challenged by all the technology issues. So what we're doing this year is we are opening, and our tax sites are open now. We say sites, right? Some of them are open in person. People can actually go and make an appointment and do drop off, or they're being done electronically. So we have virtual forms of free tax preparation, we have hybrid forms, and we have drop-off forms. So the thing that people need to remember is that they can't walk into their favorite VITA site, their favorite Boston Tax Help Coalition site. They cannot just walk in, they have to call first.
Well, one thing that hasn't changed is that a lot of taxpayers in Boston you're trying to help are eligible for the earned income tax credit.
That's right.
And many of them, they might be thinking, well, I didn't make money last year. I was out of work. So maybe I don't even have to file a form. So what should they be thinking about?
Right, so the earned income credit, as people may or may not know, may or may not remember, is a refundable credit for low-income households who work. So it is refundable. You get the additional dollars on your tax return. It is more important than ever this year, right? Because people have been out of work, and it's an additional chunk of money. So what do they need to think of? Well, they need to know that the only way that they can get that earned income credit is to file a tax return. So even if you think you didn't make enough money, even if you think you lost some income during the year and you're not sure, you should call 311 or go to bostontaxhelp.org. Our volunteers and our trained staff are VITA, they're IRS certified, and so they will be able to let you work with you to get you the highest amount of tax refund that you could possibly get. The other thing that's important to know, Chris, is um, we have a new regulation that we can talk about called look back, which is really important for taxpayers to understand.
Well, I don't understand it yet. So what does that mean exactly?
Of course. Um, so as you said, because so many people's income was impacted by the pandemic, they lost jobs, they got hours cut, they may have changed jobs, or they may have just completely lost them outright. People's income has really been impacted. What that means for your tax year is that because your income may have gone down dramatically, your earned income tax credit, which is the refundable credit that we just were talking about. Um, and for people who don't remember that, depending on how much money you make in your what's called adjusted gross income, right? The AGI that people talk about. Um, if you make about 25 to $30,000 a year of your AGI, your adjusted gross income, you may get the maximum amount of the earned income credit. That is $6,000 that you get on top of your tax refund. And then in Massachusetts, there's also an earned income credit, which is 30% of the federal credit. So it's a lot of money, right? I mean, this is a lot of money that you could be getting. Now, what the federal government did is they recognized that because people were losing income, they in fact might be in a situation where their earned income credit refund dollars were going to go down and plummet. And in fact, the data show that people would have lost anywhere between 30 to 70% of their EITC. So what they did is they created something called the look back provision. And this is exactly what it sounds like. What it does is it allows a tax preparer to ask the taxpayer, do you want to use your 2019 AGI or your 2020 AGI? And you have to do the calculations at the tax site to in fact determine which one is going to give you the higher EITC or the child tax credit. And that is the one you can use. It's taxpayer chosen, right? So the taxpayer gets to make that claim. I want to use 2019. Let's look. In our Vitus sites, what we're doing is we're trying to look at both, and we're asking all of the taxpayers if they could, whether they came to that same site last year or they didn't, to please bring their 2019 tax refund so that we'll know what their EIC was, so that we can compare it and do the return based on the highest EIC that they'll receive.
Well, I can certainly understand why a taxpayer would need some help figuring that out. A lot of taxpayers in Boston are eligible for the free help that you're offering,
Right.
but you also do have some eligibility criteria.
We do, and the eligibility criteria is it's not hard and fast. It's based on um, what the earned income credit threshold is. So for a family of three, that's 57,000 a year. Really, if people are making anywhere under 60 grand, we can usually do their returns. Shouldn't be a problem. The ABCD sites, the numbers are a little more hard and fast.
What about the way you're going to help people under pandemic conditions? Because sometimes I think it would be pretty hard to do without an in-person visit. Other times I can imagine somebody, doing their taxes online at home, but maybe calling somebody with a few questions. So between one and the other of those, how do you do this?
Well, so what we have been able to do is create um, a hybrid system. Some taxpayers will be able to do everything virtually. They'll call in. We have a partnership with a national partner called Code for America that has set up a whole infrastructure online. Um, People call in, they put all their information in, they upload their tax documents. They then are sent to one of our volunteer preparers. The person does their return electronically. They call them back with any questions. They do a DocuSign, so they do an electronic signature, and then they send them the return. And then we do the e-file. That is the kind of the cleanest system. In some instances, at Dorchester House, at Codman Square, at the Roxbury Center for Financial Empowerment, we recognize that many of our taxpayers are less tech savvy. They can't do that, or they choose not to do it. And so we are doing a phone in intake, doing the intake on the phone, making an appointment and having the taxpayer come to that site, drop off all of their tax forms. The site will scan them, upload them for that taxpayer, uh, follow up with any questions that they may have in terms of the intake, and then call them back. Then the taxpayer will leave. We'll do the return. They'll call them for the quality review. They'll sign, and then we'll e-file them, so that there is a virtual system and then a drop-off system.
Well, dealing with taxes is a load off people's mind, but you also try to help people with their financial situations as well.
We
I mean,
do.
just figuring out what to do if they have some difficulties. Are you doing any of that this year?
So we are, right, because we make an effort to try to do this work, even though we know that it's hard. And across the country, a lot of people are not making choices to do this kind of asset building or credit building work at tax time, but we are in fact trying to maintain this. So we have something called a financial checkup. It provides a taxpayer with uh, running a credit report, going through that credit report so that it's a one-on-one credit, very short counseling session, making recommendations on, oh, you know, it looks like you might be getting $7,000 on your return. Maybe you should make a decision here to save $1,000, right? To do some, to put some money away for an emergency savings, or to pay down a particular bill, so that we work on credit building. We are doing that this year, and we're doing it at the Roxbury Center for Financial Empowerment. We're doing it at Urban Edge this year, and we're still, because all of this work is extremely challenging to figure out, and all the sites are a little bit different. We're trying to figure out, can we do it in at Codman and Dorchester House? We think we're going to be doing it completely electronically at JVS, Jewish Vocational Services. So it's a mixed bag. That's the other thing. I mean, you can call ahead because you need to call ahead. That is the thing. If somebody wants to get their credit report pulled, we have found that often this is the annual pilgrimage, right? People know they're coming, they're going to get their credit report pulled. That's kind of the annual financial checkup for people. So if you want that FCU, you should call ahead. You
Well,
need to
some
call
of
ahead anyways,
what
right?
right. Well, some of what you do with the tax help is what people can get from the private sector and maybe get it done pretty quickly. But again, I guess we should tell people that does come at a price.
Well, of course, right? I mean, and the thing about the private sector is that everybody in the tax season this year was held back by the IRS. Folks just started e-filing on the 12th of this month, so everybody was behind. Sometimes the IRS will do these, I'm not the IRS, I'm sorry, the paid preparers will do the refund anticipation loans. They're still doing them, but what may end up happening with that is that it's a guesstimation on how much money you're getting back, and so you may end up owing the paid preparers. So yeah, and it's quite expensive, right? Because it's even more challenging, even harder. They charge you even more. They take more of your money. So people should get themselves to a free tax site. Or make sure you make that phone call to 311 or 635-4500, or go to bostontaxhelp.org and make sure you can get to your favorite site, whether it's through the drop off or whether it's through a phone call.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much.
From the Boston Tax Help Coalition, Mimi Turchinetz. We'll have more news in just a moment.